Okay, so I have a story to share. It's a bit unconventional, but it's a time in my life where I was traveling to a destination and was really struggling on my way to get there. So I was probably about 13 or 14 at the time. And my family and I, my mom, my stepdad, and my brother and I were going to be going to the beach. And I lived in Lakeland, Florida at the time. And so it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours to the Atlantic side to go to the beach. And we were going to be going to a beach that was a bit south of Cocoa Beach. And the way to get to this place is, we take highways for the majority of the time, but there's a span of road on this travel that is, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing on this. It's like a 50-mile span of just nothing. Just 2-lane highway or 4-lane highway, I guess. And there's nothing. There's no rest stops. There's no McDonald's. There's no gas stations. There's nothing. So we're getting into this time, and right before we hit this span of road, which we all knew was coming, we had taken this journey, per se, many times to go to the beach. And we all knew it was coming, but right before we got to this part, my mom asked my brother and I, do any of you guys need to use the bathroom before we get to this place? There's not going to be much coming up. And we're both like, no problem. We had eaten. Like prior to this, we were doing good on snacks. We were doing fine. Like I didn't need to go to the bathroom. Luke didn't need to go to the bathroom. There's no problem. And so we were traveling, and all of a sudden, about 5 to 10 minutes into this span of nothingness, it like hit me. I was just like, oh no, like I have to use the restroom. But I was embarrassed. I didn't want to share this with my mom. She had just asked me if I had to go, and I said no. So I kind of just kept my cool and just kind of, acted like I was fine, and I was like, well, I'll just make it. I'll make it through. It's not going to be a big deal. And the more we traveled on this road to nowhere with nothing, it was hitting me more and more that I was not going to make it, that it was not going to be good. So I was contemplating in my head, okay, I have a few options here. One, I'm miserable and I just keep quiet and I save face and I don't say anything. And I make it until we get to the beach when there's going to be a restroom. But I knew that the gas stations coming, the ones that were closest to me, were not nice gas stations. These were like sketchy gas stations. And the sketchy gas stations that I'm talking about, the ones where you literally drive past and you're like, it's not worth it. It is not worth it to go to that restroom. I will wait and be miserable. And that's what was coming. That's what was meeting me at the end of this road. So I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, my only other option is I tell them, and then they pull over, and I use the restroom on the side of the road. That is my other option. And so I'm thinking in my head, and I just feel I'm just struggling. I'm having this internal struggle of, is it even worth it to wait? Because once I get there, it's not even going to be that great. Is it worth it to persevere and wait for this relief that's going to come at even maybe a place that's a little sketchy and seems like nothing I really want to do with? Or should I just give up and, get not really much fulfillment even on the side of the road, because even then it's like I don't have the tools that are necessary, you know what I mean, to be able to, do what I had to do. So this 12-year-old or 13-year-old girl, 13-year-old Brooke, is just having this major internal struggle. So my question for you now is, have you ever been in a situation where you are on a road somewhere, or you're going somewhere, or you have a plan to do something, but the means of getting there is A, going to be miserable, B, going to be uncomfortable, or C, is it even worth it? Have you ever wondered, like, am I going to make it to this destination, or am I going to explode on the way there? Another question is, have you ever been afraid that you are going to fail on the way there? Have you ever allowed failure to deter you from even making it happen? And I'm sure all of us have asked this question, but have you ever asked yourself, is it even worth it? Is it even worth me making this journey? And so what I want to read today, what I want to focus on, is in the book of Mark. It's the story that a lot of you have likely heard 100 times. It's when Jesus calms the storm, the story of Jesus calming the storm. It's Mark chapter 4, verse 35 through Mark chapter 5, verse 21. It's a long section of scripture. I'm going to try to get through it fast. But it is so rich in this promise. And it's an amazing story of Jesus calming the storm. So I'm going to start reading at in chapter 4, verse 35. So on that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." So one day he wants to go across to the other side of the sea. It was out of nowhere. This is when Jesus just wanted to cross the sea. And he said, and leaving the crowd, they took him with in the boat, just as he was. And the other boats were with him. And it was a great windstorm, and a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking onto the boat. And so the boat was already filling. But he was in the astern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, these are his disciples, and they said to him, "Teacher, do you not see that we are dying?" Essentially, do you not see that we are going to die? We are not going to make it. And he awoke and he rebuked the wind and he said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Simple as that. You've heard that, and that's not exactly what I'm going to be focusing on, but it's amazing to think that Jesus just woke up and walked out and said, "Peace, be still," and the waves stopped. And there was a great calm. And he said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Why did you not think that we were going to make it? Did you not know that I'm here? Why did you not think that we were going to make it?" And he said, "Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, "Who is this that even the wind and the sea obey him?" Now we're going into chapter 5, and now they're, just to paraphrase a little bit, they have entered this place. The whole reason that they crossed the sea was so that Jesus could encounter this man named Legion. And this is a man that in all aspects of the word was completely and utterly, unapproachably lost and broken. This was a man that no one wanted anything to do with, that was seen cutting himself and was just in misery and was like the most unreachable of the unreachable people. This is a man that was filled with legions of demons. So this demon-possessed man that Jesus crossed the sea specifically to see. And so this chapter 5 goes into Jesus calling on this man named Legion and telling these demons to flee from him. And in one moment, these demons, this legion of demons, which literally means like an army of people, an army of demons inside of this man, and he causes them to flee, and then they all go into a herd of pigs, and this herd of pigs runs off of a cliff and drowns. That is the story of Jesus healing the man named Legion, which directly follows Jesus getting in a boat with his disciples and crossing the sea in the midst of the worst possible storm that you could imagine, and him simply calming it to go reach this man. And so the end of that story says, and he went away and began to proclaim. This is the man that had just been healed, that had just gotten all these demons out of him. And he said, and he went away and began to proclaim just how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. Of course, everyone marveled. That was an amazing story, that this unreachable man would be cleansed of this demon possession. And this next verse is what I want to just focus on for a second. It says, when Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered, and he was beside the sea. So that whole story starts, Jesus gets in the boat, this intense storm happens along the way, and the disciples literally were like, "Jesus, don't you see that we're dying?" Just to go heal this man that was the most far gone that he possibly could have been, just to get in the boat and go back to the other side. That is amazing. That is so amazing. And so what I want to focus on here is the disciples followed Jesus and said, okay, I'll get in the boat with you. And despite their fear, Jesus still did this miracle. But while the disciples were on the boat, they were convinced they were not going to even make it to see why they were crossing the sea. They were convinced that there was not even any purpose because they were going to die in the meantime. They weren't going to even make it. Their fear was clouding them. Their faith, their lack of faith, was completely clouding them against what could even be happening. All they were focused on was the storm that they were in. They didn't even realize that Jesus was going to perform this incredible, amazing miracle because they were so focused on the failure of they were going to die. The ship was going to break. They were not going to make it through the storm. And in one moment, Jesus said, "Be still, storm," and the storm stopped. What I want to ask you today is, what are the areas in which you're giving up before even seeing what Jesus is doing or what he is going to do on the other side? Is there a time or a moment in your life where you have been in the midst of a crazy storm that you are so focused on this storm that you can't even make it to the promise or the miracle that's coming because of this storm? You're so fearful. In the midst of that storm, the disciples got up and they awoke Jesus from his sleep and said, "Teacher, we are dying." Is there a time right now in your life that you are going through this storm, or you know someone that's going through this terrible thing? Maybe it's a marriage that is in the midst of destruction, that is not, there seems to be no end in sight, or it's, you haven't gotten an exception letter yet from a university, and you're just so caught up on, I'm not going to get in, or my marriage is failing, or I'm not going to make it, or I can't do this alone. But you haven't even gone to the teacher and said, "Teacher, we're dying, I'm drowning, the water's coming." Have you gone to him? And if you have you trusted that he's going to calm it and that a miracle is coming? What I want to ask you today is to just close your eyes and imagine what it would be like if, as a church, if as a body of believers, if we would first go to the teacher in the midst of our storm, or that we would go to the feet of Jesus, and that we would fall to the feet of Jesus and say, "God, I'm dying, I'm drowning, I don't see a hope." Because God can handle that. He is God. He can handle worry, and he can handle fear, and he can handle anything. He can calm the worst storm. But if we don't even bring it to him, how can he see the faith, that we believe that the miracle is coming? And so imagine, as a body of believers, if all of us drop to the feet of Jesus, but then after that, if we would stay on the boat and go to the other side of the lake and see the unreachable. Imagine the people that we could reach. Imagine the situations and the hope that we could bring as a body of believers if we were willing to cross all the way to the other side with Jesus for the miracle, even if it's untouchable. Like in that moment where I was so uncomfortable, I had to use the restroom, and the only option was giving up, pulling over, or going to a sketchy bathroom. But in the end, it was worth it to wait. That relief was there. Obviously, I wouldn't call it a miracle, but I would call it just relief for waiting. And that's what can come if we would first seek the Lord and go to him in our fear and our anxiety and our worry, and we would say, "Teacher, I'm drowning, but God, there's a miracle coming." And just imagining together the miracles that we could see as a body if we would go all the way to the other side with Jesus for the unreachable, for the worst situation.